following the structure of the Constitution is to look at the 12 schedule in the Constitution, which are part of the Constitution. Generally, in most legal documents, you have annexures or attachments, which usually are explanation to the main provision in the Constitution. So the 12 schedules of the Constitution also add to the length and the bulk of the Constitution. And originally, the Indian Constitution only had 8 schedules, and 4 more schedules were added. And the first schedule of the Constitution, which covers Article 1 and 4, are generally the names of the state and their territorial jurisdiction, the name of the union territory and its extent. That's what there is in the first schedule. In the second schedule, which actually refers to a lot of articles, the second schedule actually is in relation to the provisions of emolument, allowances and privileges to a lot of constitutional functionaries. For example, the emolument, allowance and privilege of the President of India is mentioned in the second schedule, the governor of different states, the speaker, the deputy speaker of the Lok Sabha, the chairman and the deputy chairman of the Rajya Sabha, the speaker and deputy speaker of the Legislative Assembly, the chairman and deputy chairman of the legislative councils in the state, the judges of the Supreme Court, High Court, and finally the Comptroller and Auditor General of India. All these constitutional functionaries, allowances, privileges, and emolument is mentioned in the second schedule. And the functions of the constitutional functionaries have been mentioned in the following articles: 59, 65, 75, 97, 125. This is not necessarily the exhaustive list of articles, but some of the articles which deal with these constitutional functionaries and their emoluments, privileges are mentioned in the second schedule. So those powers are mentioned, the functions are mentioned in the main part of the Constitution, but the kind of privileges and allowances that they should get is mentioned in the second schedule. The third schedule of the Constitution are about the forms of oath or affirmation that has to be taken by the constitutional functionaries. These pertain to articles of the Constitution 75, 84, 99, 124 and 146. Again, it can include Article 188 and 219 as well. The forms of oath or affirmations of, say, a union minister, or what should be the oath being administered to the union minister, those who are elected as members of parliament, the judges of the Supreme Court. The oath is mentioned in the third schedule. Similarly, the oath that is to be taken by the Comptroller and Auditor General of India, state ministers, candidates for the MLA elections, not candidates, but I think the member of Legislative Assembly, once you're elected, you actually take the oath, and the judges of the High Court. So all of these have to take the oath of the Constitution, and the format of that oath is present in the third schedule. Coming to the fourth schedule of the Constitution, friends, it is about the allocation of seats in the Rajya Sabha to the states and the union territories, and these are pertaining to Articles 4 and 80 of the Constitution of India. The fifth schedule of the Constitution, these are quite interesting and important sometimes. They actually pertain to the administration and control of scheduled areas and scheduled tribes. To be honest, the fifth schedule of the Constitution is an important provision because the management of these scheduled areas which include SC and ST. It can include certain tribal belts of the country. Those are mentioned in the fifth schedule. So that's also very important. The sixth schedule of the Constitution comes to the rescue of administration of tribal areas, especially in the state of Assam, Meghalaya, Tripura, and Mizoram. These are also scheduled tribe areas, but they are mentioned especially in the sixth schedule because they are in the northeast, and they have been accorded special status in the constitution in terms of the autonomous administration in those states as well. The seventh schedule of the constitution is the most popular of all the schedules because this is about the division of power between the union and the states in terms of, say, list 1, which is called the union list, and list 2, which is called the state list. And then there is a list 3 as well, which is called the concurrent list as well. Presently, as we speak, probably, just to give you the numbers, the union list contains around 98 subjects on which the union government has the power to legislate and govern in this country. So that's the clear division of power. 98 subjects to the union list. The state list contains nearly 59 subjects. So you can clearly know the federal structure in this country is heavily centralized, and there are more powers granted to the central government, obviously just by the sheer number of subjects that are being allocated to the central government. The concurrent list contains around 52 subjects. Originally, the concurrent list had only 47. With a few amendments, now 5 more subjects have been added. And we know that the concurrent list can also be dominated by the central government. So I think more than around 145 subjects are the subjects on which the central government can actually legislate upon, and that is how this federation has strengthened centralization in this country. So all that is mentioned in the 7th schedule of the constitution, and I think that sums it up. Probably just to give you the bird's eye view. Coming to the 8th schedule of the constitution, 8th schedule is about languages recognized by the constitution. Originally, we had only recognized around 14 languages, but presently there are 22 languages that are recognized in the constitution. Which are the languages that are recognized by the constitution? Just to give you an idea, some of the popular ones are Assami language, the Bengali, the Gujarati, obviously the Hindi, Kannada, Kashmiri, Konkani are some of the languages. But don't forget that we have also recognized in the constitution Nepali as one of the languages. Marathi, Punjabi, Sanskrit, Sindhi, Tamil, Telugu, Urdu, Malayalam, and the Dongri language and the Bodo languages are also recognized by the constitution. Sindhi was actually brought about through an amendment in 1967, and Manipuri and Nepali were added in the 71st amendment, and Marathi was brought about by the 92nd amendment, and Odia was brought about by the 96th amendment in 2011. So I think the latest addition to this 8th schedule of the constitution happens to be the Odia language, and that was added in 2011. So I think very clearly we understand why this schedule is important. So articles 344 and 351 are something that are pertaining to the languages. Coming to the 9th schedule of the constitution, 31B, the 9th schedule is also a controversial schedule because the 9th schedule is about land reform. These are acts and regulations of the state legislature dealing with land reform and abolition of the zamindari system, and that could include matters that are pertaining to even what the parliament says. So this schedule was added by the first amendment of 1951. So the first amendment brought the 9th schedule. So till then there were only 8 schedules, and this was to protect these legislations from judicial scrutiny, because the land reform and the zamindari system directly affected right to property, which is a fundamental right, and to give them a kind of a special status from the scrutiny of the judiciary and from the interference of the judiciary, the 9th schedule was created. You will notice that once the legislation is brought under the 9th schedule, the judicial review and scrutiny of these legislations could be avoided, and right to property could be trampled upon by the state once the legislations have been brought in this particular schedule. So that was the purpose. So circumventing judicial scrutiny by the parliament happened through the introduction of the 9th schedule. However, one should note that in 2007, the Supreme Court ruled that even the legislations in the ninth schedule will be subject to judicial scrutiny. And now note that the purpose of the ninth schedule, as it were originally, has been diluted thanks to the Supreme Court's intervention. I think judicial scrutiny is very, very important and critical. It brings in a sense of accountability, and no such law should be beyond the scope of the constitutional courts, because I think that is where the application of judicial mind is situated. The 10th schedule is again quite a controversial one, like the ninth one. This is about disqualification of members of parliament and state legislatures on the ground of defection. This is called the anti-defection law. This was added in 1985 thanks to the 52nd Amendment. This is something that we will definitely look into. This is a very important position of public policy in this country. We should have a detailed discussion on the 10th schedule and the anti-defection law in this India. The 11th schedule is about the specific powers, authority and responsibility of the panchayats, and this was brought about by the 73rd Amendment in 1992. And please note, the 11th schedule has nearly 29 matters that are supposed to be dealt by the panchayats. So that is how devolution of power was supposed to happen, at least constitutionally on paper. Some have happened, but not everything that was required. The 12th schedule talks about the powers, authority and responsibility of the municipalities. It also has around 18 matters, and this schedule was added again by the 74th Amendment Act of 1992. So this is fairly giving you an idea of what is contained in each of these schedules, which adds to the structure of the Constitution of India.